the evening of December 31st, 1899, in the heart of Copenhagen, Denmark, in a city cloaked in the frost of a bitter winter, where cobblestone streets glistened with ice and the wind howled like a mournful spirit, there lived a little girl named Ilara. She was a frail, delicate creature, no more than 10 years old, with hair the color of pale moonlight and eyes as wide and blue as the frozen lakes that dotted the countryside. Her cheeks, once rosy with the bloom of youth, were now pale and pinched from cold and hunger, and her small hands trembled as they clutched a tattered shawl around her thin shoulders. Ilara was known to the townsfolk as a little match girl, for she roamed the streets each day, offering matches for sale in a voice as soft as a whisper, hoping to earn a few coins to stave off the gnawing emptiness in her stomach. The city was a place of contrasts, its grandeur and misery intertwined like the threads of a worn tapestry. Grand houses with glowing windows lined the main avenues, their warmth spilling out in golden light, while in the shadowed alleys, the poor huddled in doorways, their breaths forming clouds in the frigid air. It was New Year's Eve, and the city buzzed with anticipation. Carriages rattled by, carrying finely dressed men and women to lavish parties, their laughter ringing through the streets. Shop windows displayed feasts of roast goose, plum pudding, and sugared fruits, their tantalizing aromas wafting out to torment those who could not afford such luxuries. For Ilara, the world beyond the glass was a distant dream, a place of warmth and plenty that seemed as unreachable as the stars. Ilara's life had not always been so bleak. Once, she had lived in a modest cottage on the edge of the city with her grandmother, a kind woman with a smile like sunlight and hands that wove stories as skillfully as they mended clothes. They had been poor, but love had filled their home, making it rich in its own way. Ilara's grandmother had taught her to see beauty in small things, the way the frost painted patterns on the window panes, the song of a sparrow in the dawn, the flicker of a candle's flame. But a year ago, illness had taken her grandmother, leaving Ilara alone in a world that seemed to grow colder with each passing day. Her father, a broken man consumed by grief and drink, cared little for her, sending her out to sell matches to bring home coins he often squandered at the tavern. The cottage was gone, sold to pay debts, and Ilara now lived in a drafty attic room, its walls patched with newspaper and its floor bare save for a thin straw pallet. On this New Year's Eve, the cold was fiercer than ever. Snow fell in thick, swirling flakes, blanketing the city in a silence broken only by the crunch of boots and the distant chime of church bells. Ilara's feet, bare except for a pair of worn slippers too large for her, ached as they sank into the snow. The slippers had once belonged to her mother, who had died when Ilara was too young to remember her face, and they were little protection against the biting cold. Her fingers, red and raw, clutched a small bundle of matches, her only means of survival. She had not sold a single match that day, and the thought of returning to the attic empty-handed filled her with dread. Her father's temper was as unpredictable as a winter wind, and she feared his anger more than the cold. Ilara wandered the streets, her small voice calling out, "Matches, matches for sale!" But the passers-by hurried past, their faces buried in scarves, their minds on the warmth of their homes or the festivities awaiting them. Some cast pitying glances her way, but none stopped to buy. A wealthy merchant, his coat lined with fur, brushed past her, muttering about the nuisance of street urchins. A lady in a velvet cloak paused for a moment, her eyes softening, but her companion tugged her away, whispering that the girl was likely a beggar who would squander any coin given. Elara's heart sank with each rejection, but she pressed on, driven by the faint hope that someone, somewhere, might need her matches. As dusk fell, the city grew quieter, the streets emptying as people retreated to their hearths. The snow fell heavier now, piling in drifts that made each step a struggle. Elara's slippers had long since fallen off, lost in the snow, and her bare feet left faint, bloody prints on the icy ground. She found herself in a narrow alley, where the wind was less cruel, shielded by the high walls of two grand houses. The glow from their windows spilled into the alley, casting a warm, golden light that seemed to beckon her. She could hear laughter and music from within, the clink of glasses, the murmur of happy voices. The scent of roasted chestnuts and spiced wine drifted through a cracked window, and Elara's stomach twisted with hunger. She sank down against the wall, her small body shivering uncontrollably. The cold seeped into her bones, making her limbs heavy and her thoughts sluggish. She knew she could not stay here long. Her father would expect her home, and the night would only grow colder, but she could not muster the strength to move. Her eyes fell to the bundle of matches in her lap. They were her livelihood, her only hope of earning a coin, but they were also something more. Each match, when struck, could summon a tiny flame, a fleeting moment of warmth and light. The thought stirred something in her heart, a memory of her grandmother's voice. Even the smallest light can chase away the darkness, my dear. With trembling fingers, Elara took a single match from the bundle. She hesitated, knowing that each match used was one less to sell. But the cold was unbearable, and the promise of even a moment's warmth was too tempting to resist. She struck the match against the rough stone of the alley wall, and a tiny flame sprang to life, its golden glow dancing in the darkness. Elara cupped her hands around it, shielding it from the wind, and felt a faint warmth kiss her fingers. The light was small, but it was enough to transform the alley, casting shadows that flickered like spirits on the walls. As she gazed into the flame, something extraordinary happened. The light seemed to grow, not in brightness but in depth, as if it were a window to another world. Elara blinked, and before her eyes, a vision unfolded. She saw a grand fireplace, its hearth ablaze with logs that crackled and popped. The warmth enveloped her, not just on her skin but deep within, soothing the ache in her bones. Above the fireplace hung a garland of holly, its red berries gleaming, and on a table nearby stood a feast: roast turkey, steaming potatoes, and a golden pie that smelled of apples and cinnamon. Elara's heart swelled with longing. She reached out, wanting to step into this vision, to sit by the fire and taste the food. But the match burned down, its flame flickering out, and the vision vanished. She was back in the cold alley, the wind biting at her face, the snow swirling around her. Elara's breath hitched as a vivid vision of a warm hearth faded, leaving her in the cold alley. She struck another match, its tiny flame revealing a Christmas tree adorned with twinkling candles and gifts wrapped in bright paper. She imagined a doll among them, like one she'd seen in the shop window. The match died, and the vision vanished. Tears stung her eyes, but she lit another match, and her grandmother appeared, radiant and loving, arms open wide. "Grandmother," Elara whispered, her heart aching with joy and sorrow. She struck match after match, desperate to hold the vision, each flame banishing the cold and pain. With her final match, her grandmother's form grew bright, and Elara felt a deep warmth. She smiled, closing her eyes as the vision carried her away. The alley fell silent, snow falling softly. The next morning, January 1st, a baker found Elara curled against the wall, a faint smile on her lips, surrounded by burned matches. A crowd gathered, their pity too late. Word of her fate briefly stirred Copenhagen, but soon the city forgot, the poor still shivering in the shadows. Elara, though, had found peace in her grandmother's embrace, her matches a gateway to a world beyond pain. Moral of the story: Elara's tale reminds us of life's fragility and hope's enduring power. Her matches brought fleeting visions of love and warmth, urging us to notice and help those who suffer in silence. It warns against indifference that overlooks the vulnerable and celebrates the human spirit's ability to find solace in darkness. Let us build a world where no child seeks warmth in a fleeting flame but finds it in a caring community.